Hello and welcome to Quantum Computation Simplified. I'm Kadresan. I'll take you through this series of videos. It has got 5 parts, and this is the first one, giving an introduction about quantum computers. So this video is made to address the needs of two sets of people. The first set of people who have already made an attempt to learn quantum computing but could not proceed. Basically looking at the notations and mathematics. Initially, in fact, it was frustrating for me also, but later I realized what is essential and what is the bare minimum so that we understand and start coding a quantum computer. So I try to give the minimum information here possible, but certainly you need all those information given in textbooks and other videos, but that can be learned as you proceed further. And it also, the people who are not aware and they want to learn quantum computing also will get good introduction about quantum computing in this series of videos. I request all the people to go through the complete all the 5 parts, which covers like this introduction until you get a hands-on on a quantum computer. But the people who already made a beginning, possibly they can skip this introductory portion of it. That's the first part. Why quantum computing is required now? Why should we look into that when we are happy? Are you happy with the existing computer technology? We may be happy now, but uh, it is going to end soon. It's because we are approaching the physical limit of computer current technology. So all these years, the Moore's law has been followed easily. Moore's law states that the number of transistors on a microchip doubles every 2 years, though the cost of computer is halved. But it's not going to happen soon. It's because already the technology has come to its physical limit. The transistor cannot be thinned down further. So we need to look for an alternate technology. So quantum computing is one of the technologies which will address the need. It's not the only technologies. Okay. It is expected that quantum computer will solve a real world problem that cannot be solved with classical computer at all or in a short time. So that's going to be a huge benefit of computational power. Interestingly, IBM, Google, Microsoft, Honeywell, and many other companies are spending a lot of money in quantum computing. So it's going to be a big market, and it is better to get into this market as soon as possible. So what are those real world problems people are trying to address? There are many problems already. People started working. You will see a complete list from this website. I just given a few of them. Delta Airlines is trying to reschedule their flights after hurricane or any natural calamity. So they are trying to use a quantum computer to accelerate their algorithms. Daimler is trying to develop low cost, greener batteries because batteries are going to drive the world. JP Morgan is trying to improve their stock trading strategies. Cambridge Quantum Computing is trying to create advanced cryptography. Google and IBM are trying to improve artificial intelligence. People who are working on AML know that most of the time is spent on training the model, so which can be reduced. The training time can be reduced drastically. Cleaner fertilizer manufacturing and drug development are areas where classical computing cannot do much. But with the quantum computing, we'll be able to do a lot of improvements on the biological chemical processes. Let's touch upon a little more about the cyber security, because the RSA algorithm, which is currently used by modern computers to encrypt and decrypt messages under threat when quantum computers really come into picture. So already people are working on using quantum computer how to improve the data security. So this algorithm is based on the fact that finding the factors of a large composite number is difficult. for an example, if I give you a number like 8633 and ask you to give me the prime factors of this number, you may take a day if you do it manually. But if you use a computer, you may take a second or a fraction of it. But this is only for 4-digit number. When the number of digits go up, then the time goes like this. For a 40-digit number, it takes 90 seconds. But at the same time, when it becomes 75-digit, it takes 100 hours. So with quantum computer, this time can be reduced drastically. But that means RSA algorithm is under threat. Currently, you know that typically the two prime numbers are utilized in a function which will be used as a private key, and the public key which is given to the user, it's a function of the composite number. And by hacking the internet with the public key, the hackers, it's difficult for them to get the private key. But with the quantum computer, it is going to be easy. Obviously, we need to look for an alternate solution. I know that I have not covered much about RSA, but if you want to know more, please go to this wiki page. Clean air fertilization. So this is something different which a classical computer cannot do. Let's understand what is this. Fertilizers are today made by heating and pressurizing atmospheric nitrogen into an ammonia. It's called a Haber process. It consumes 3% of annual global energy output, and it accounts for more than 1% of greenhouse gas emissions. We are spending a lot of energy to make fertilizers, and we are also spoiling the environment. But we can't avoid. We need fertilizers. But is there any better way of doing it? Yes. See, some bacteria perform this process so naturally without affecting their environment. It has an enzyme called nitrogenase, which is made up of transition metals, and these metals have many electrons, and the quantum mechanical behavior of those electrons cannot be modeled on a classical computer. But by basic property of those qubits and the quantum nature, quantum computers can make use of will enable us to understand this process. So Sundar Pichai recently told MIT guys that he thinks the quantum improvement of Haber process is roughly a decade away. And guys like you, after learning a quantum computer, possibly you can help to accelerate this process and save our Earth. So we'll try to understand the basics of a quantum computer. But actually we can't easily understand this. It's because anyone who claims to understand quantum theory is either lying or crazy. If you think you understand quantum mechanics, you don't really understand quantum mechanics. And these are all the statements made by not an ordinary person, the great Nobel laureate Richard Feynman, who got Nobel Prize for his work on quantum mechanics. So the moral is, it's difficult, but the interesting part, the important part is you don't have to really understand. You just read, know, if you can remember, it's fine. Otherwise, it's okay. Because for writing a program in a quantum computer, you don't have to understand the quantum mechanics. That's the good part of it. Continuing further on quantum basics, we know that in a classical computer, a bit is the lowest element, which helps us to store our information. And in fact, it will have either 0 or 1 state. That means every information, whatever we work on computer, we store on computer, they all work with the zeros and ones. We know that. In quantum computing, instead of a bit, we have something called a qubit. So it's a short form for quantum bit. But it has got two nice properties which make the quantum computer very, very powerful. So the first one is called superposition, which states that instead of holding one binary value 0 or 1 like a classical bit, a qubit can hold a combination of 0 and 1 simultaneously. It looks little difficult, but you don't have to worry. As you go through further slides in the video, you will understand it in a better way. In classical computing, for example, if there are 4 bits, then the combination of 4 bits can represent 2 to the power of 4, that is 16 values in total, but only one value at a given instant. For example, I mean, like what you can see here, I have 4 combinations of a classical bit, all zeros, from all zeros to all 1, and in between combinations of 0 and 1, means we have 0 to 15, 16 values. But at any point of time, you can represent only one number. It can be 0 or 1, 4, 7, 8, like that. But in a combination of 4 qubits, all 16 values are possible at once. So this is the trick. Again, if you don't understand, don't worry. You will understand as we proceed further. The second property is entanglement. So it's a property of 2 or more qubits that allows a set of qubits express higher correlation than is possible in classical systems. And once the qubits are entangled, they remain linked even when they are separated by any distance. So this is the funny part of it. That means if you create 2 qubits and then you entangle them, if you take the 1 qubit far away, how far? Any distance. Maybe you can take it to moon. Even after that, when one of the qubits is manipulated, the manipulation happens instantaneously to its entangled twin. That's why Einstein calls this as, he used to call spooky action at a distance. Little scary, like a ghost. Something is happening. But again, we don't have to really thoroughly understand. Physicists have done experiments. They proved that that entanglement is possible. So our job is to make use of the entanglement, not necessarily to go and try to explore in depth about entanglement. But we should also be aware that entanglement is also a point of weakness for quantum computers. It's because the qubits are currently generated at a very, very low level, energy level. In fact, these quantum computers, they run at close to 0 Kelvin, right? Which is much colder than even the outer space. And basically, we want to avoid the interference coming thermally or electrically, magnetically. But in case the interference comes, then it can break the entanglement. So what does it mean? We may lose accuracy, or sometimes we may lose total the answer for our problem. Again, you just remember that because we don't have to worry, because physicists are working already on avoiding such fragile correlation. So they try to improve the process. And you need to realize that any number of qubits can be entangled. It's not only 2. And they're all explained by these 3 scientists in the papers. If you are interested, you can go through that. Otherwise, for a programmer, you only just know about it. Typically, we know that we express 0 or 1, a classical bits state. But a qubit is expressed in a slightly different way. Even when it is measured as 0 or 1, we write it in something like this. It's called ket 0 and ket 1. They are nothing but the states of a qubit. So it's a part of bracket notation introduced by Dirac. Why this complexity? Possibly to confuse us, but anyway, you really don't get confused. Things will be clear as you proceed further. So it's only, you should remember how to represent. So it means that the states are expressed in terms of vectors. So this represents a vector. The symbols on the vertical line and the bracket are called ket when it is facing this side, when it's called bra when it is facing this side. So scientists made us bracket into 2 parts to represent 2 things. So the ket is typically a column vector. Column vector, I think you may remember, it has got 1 column and multiple vectors, and the state 0 is expressed something like 1 0, and similarly the state 1 is expressed as 0 and 1. And it's also possible to represent in a row vector, so where in row vector you have one row and multiple columns. So this is in bra form, this is in ket form. Okay, again just remember that. I'm sure as you start writing code or trying to understand, it will be easy. The next question may come to your mind: what are these qubits, from where they are coming from? So to create a qubit, scientists generally find a spot in a material where they can access and control the quantum properties. So it can be made from molecules, atoms, electrons, ions, photons, anything like that. So typically, these are all the technologies what currently people are using. Of course, like this, many are there which can be seen in wiki page. But the important ones I'm highlighting here: superconducting loops, trapped ions, silicon quantum dots, and diamond vacancies. Again, we don't have to worry about how these qubits are getting generated. We should only know how these qubits can be manipulated to solve our problems. So we need a quantum computer, right? Where do we get? It's too early to have one in our home. It's because it's very expensive today, and also the technology is not easily available. In fact, many countries do not have a quantum computer. And you should also know that we need a classical computer today to work with a quantum computer. And but the good part is quantum computers are freely available for us. Including some simulators through cloud service. Some of these manufacturers, they offer the access to to their computers freely. Like IBM has got 18 computers actually, and they follow the superconducting method. So these are all the number of bits used by quantum computers made by these companies. The one interesting thing, they have gone up to 2048 qubits, which means you can solve reasonably a big problem. But this technology is slightly different, so they don't call as a quantum computer. Instead they call quantum annealer. And certain problems cannot be solved. So anyway, I will not go into the detail in this set of videos. Possibly we may look into that later. But otherwise, this is all just for your information. So quantum computers are available for our knowledge, learning, and then trying out different algorithms. That's all. So with this, I will stop on part 1 video. So I request you to see the remaining videos. See you soon. Bye.